Chief Kirk Hughes is joining me this morning from Protective Services with the County of Vermilion River. I know that it is a day where we're getting some precipitation, but we're still going to talk about fire prevention. Thank you so much for joining me, Chief Hughes.
Thank you for having me, Stacy.
Well, one of the things that's going to be happening soon is seeding in this area. And you had a chance to hear from a farmer in that area who had some tips from his farm. And it's something that, even though today it might not be something we're thinking about, it is going to be drier and there are things you can do to help prevent fire. So let's talk about a little bit about the conversation. He had given you some interview or some tips, and you guys have some tips. So let's chat about things people can do on the farm when they're seeding to help prevent fire.
Absolutely. Yeah, this ratepayer contacted us in regards to some of the precautions that he has implemented on his farm, and he thought it was a good idea to share his tips with other farmers in the region. I think that's always very beneficial when we can share that education, especially from folks who are sort of on the front lines and in regards to our seeding and harvesting. So some tips that he had mentioned is that he has kept some water totes around his property. In the unlikely event he does have a fire, he has access to water. This is obviously a major concern right now. We are in drought conditions in this part of the region, and having water on standby in order to hook up for pumps is really important, especially in the initial stages of any kind of fire emergency. So this particular ratepayer, it indicated they had some totes around, and that he had kept some hand tools on, kind of stacked in certain locations to be able to use to put out some of those spot fires. Most fires, when they start, are relatively small, and having the ability to put those out, especially in those beginning stages, is really kind of key. And his idea, his cache, as he called them, around the property, so that he had them for him and his workers to either assist the fire department when they did get there, but mostly so that he could tackle anything he could in the beginning.
Obviously, prevention is the biggest thing. So, outside of what this farmer discussed with you, is there anything else that farmers who are seeding can do? Because sometimes they get busy, they work long hours, and might be forgetting a few things, or let a few things slide. So, are there anything else, any other tips that they can think about when they're going to be seeding and working these long hours?
You bet. Prevention is a really key component. We kind of emphasize a lot in the county. If you've had a burn permit in the last couple of months, now is the time to check to see if they're fully extinguished. Those are the ones that usually the wind will kick up, things get dry, they get forgotten about, and then we end up getting a lot of fires on the go. That is probably the most important thing that I'd like to pass on is if you have a burn permit, check it. And also, don't be afraid to call 911. A lot of folks, not just farmers, but any people, residents or otherwise, they'll see smoke and they're just not sure and they don't want to bother emergency services. We'd rather be bothered in the beginning of the stages than towards the middle of it when the fire's fully grown. So the emphasis there is to, if you see smoke, if it doesn't look right, don't hesitate, call 911.
Now, the other thing is some people live on acreages, and while they don't get into the full farming process, they have quads and side by sides and things like that. And when it gets really dry, obviously those can start fires too. So, if we were just talking about people who have acreages, what are some things that they need to do when it's really dry to help prevent fires?
Maintenance is probably the biggest thing there. Keep a clean quad, a tractor, anything like that that would be producing sparks or that has heat. Anytime you're done in the either in the bushes or out on the property, do a quick clean, hose it down. Look for any kind of issues in regards to like leaks of oil, especially hot oil, and just take that moment to double check the entire function of the vehicle. We find that some of the issues we get with quads in high grass, especially, is that they'll catch fire, and sometimes the quad itself will catch fire because it's the buildup of that material that probably hasn't been cleaned in a little while. And especially around this time of year when we start to get into the pollen and some of the cotton pieces, that could be an issue going forward with quads and tractors or any kind of mechanized vehicle that's utilizing that's off road.
Well, and one last thing I'd like to talk about is people who are smoking. Sometimes they'll pull to the side of the road and then just throw the cigarette butt into the ditch. And, it might look like it's not that dry, but obviously things can happen with that. So let's talk about the smokers for the last question today.
Absolutely, Stacy. That's a major issue. We have had a few of those in the past. It's preventable, right? If you're smoking, just make sure you extinguish it. We recommend using an ashtray. Fields and gravel roads aren't the best places for those, or they're just not the best places at all, actually. Um, a pop can. probably your best bet. It's just proper disposal. We've seen a few of those kick up in the county, especially around the Highway 16 area, because it's a major corridor, and it's preventable. It's actually pretty dangerous as well. If you think about it, fires on any either in the medium or the side of the road, not only are we dealing with a fire issue, we're also dealing with traffic issues, which could be quite deadly. So we just recommend those folks who do smoke still to fully extinguish their cigarette butts in an approved container or something similar to that.
All right. Well, I really appreciate your time today. Some really great information. Thank you so much for joining me. And here's hoping that we don't have to worry about another big fire season coming this way. So thanks so much for joining me this morning.
Thank you, Stacy, for having me, and let's thank the weather here for a little bit more moisture. We could use some more of it too.